Wild Bill, and I am not a fighting artist or a martial artist, but I am a fan of the fighting arts and the martial arts, which I perceive as separate entities. The fighting arts are the ones that you can hold in your hands, your fists, your sword, your bow. Those are the fighting arts. Whereas the martial arts, in my estimation, are the ones that are wielded by a general, um, deciding order of march, deciding logistics, making sure that there is enough food, enough medicine, enough clothing, enough ammunition, enough weapons repair, and for each military unit in the field, and also to make sure that these various echelons of supply and support do not interfere with one another, because you may have 30 divisions in the field, but you may only have one railroad, and the railroad's supplying all 30 divisions. How do you organize that to keep the generals in charge of each of the divisions from going to war with the other ones? Because, hey, those supplies are mine. So I consider those logistics, troop movement, maneuver, hygiene, camping hygiene. I consider those to be the martial arts, and that the ones that you can hold in your hand to be the fighting arts. Just a personal declension. It's an affectation. I'm not an expert. However, my approach to these things is a little different than the traditional one, because I am, for sure, an artist, and I think of things from a creative point of view whenever I can. I'm not perfect. However, having read a good bit about both the fighting arts and about the martial arts, and also having read a good bit of history, and having trained to varying degrees without having any official rating in several styles of fighting art, and finally falling upon the sword, figuratively, as the best darn exercise tool in the world. It doesn't barely weighs anything, and you can move around with it and get a good workout in a very short time. Yeah, you can even build mass if you want to, though I wouldn't recommend it for anybody that wants to be fast. And of course, fights are all about speed. Just saying. Football's about mass. No, it's not. It's about speed. Just saying. Anyway, there is a technique in the fighting arts literature, and I mean the ancient literature, the very highly poetic and philosophically oriented Japanese coverages of their various fighting styles. There is something that comes up in accounts of the shinobi or the ninja. Shinobi and ninja are really, even though we see them differently because of the popular media, they are one and the same. They're just very highly talented men and women put to two very similar purposes. As a shinobi, they're just eyes and ears. As a ninja, they are wet work agents or activists in some way. A big difference. However, the people that we call shinobi, some of them were assassins. So yeah, that line is so blurred there is no line. So the word ninja basically comes from the word ninjo. And ninjo means endurance. And a ninja's job, according to the classical description, is to endure. And so they talk about these wonderful things, holding your breath forever, breathing through a tube underwater while remaining absolutely still so everybody thinks you're just a reed, wedging yourself in the corners of a ceiling of a house and somehow not falling down while people walk under you, never notice. Some of these things are absolutely impossible, and they are wholly fantastic. Others have roots and cores of truth in them. And the word ninjo, endurance, really has a lot to do with those things. As a matter of fact, if you look at the literature, you will see a great um, coherence between the powers ascribed to the ninja and the powers ascribed to certain fakirs in India. You know, the guys with the Indian rope trick, the guys that can stop their hearts, the guys that can be buried underground for 3 days, the guys that can put pins, ninja, endurance. Same thing, same powers, the fantastic form of those Indian powers, the fabled forms. Pretty much that's the same kind of powers that the ninja were given in the popular literature. However, One thing that really comes to me through both the fighting arts literature and the fantastic literature, the literature of the supposed specialist ninja or shinobi, whereas really, if you're a spy, no one would know. You don't wear black costumes and use specialized weapons, except where a spy assassin would. You know, a gun that fires ice darts with poison, that kind of stuff. They do it today. Who is it that was murdered? In my living memory, a spy was murdered on the street by a guy that had an umbrella, stabbed him in the ankles. He walked by. He died because it had ricin on it or something. He died very quickly. Um, so, getting back to my idea, one of the things that comes back to me strongest, one of the most interesting allusions in all of the literature about classical ninja shinobi operations, because real operations were done. Men were sent to clamber up castle walls at night and assassinate people. So some of this is not wholly fantastic. But you have to know what the architecture of the castles was like, too. Japanese castles didn't have vertical stone walls at the base like a lot of European castles have. Japanese castles had moats. They had a built-up area with sloped sides. And kind of like the defenestration, the Dutch defenestration, where they threw people out the window and somehow they miraculously survived. Nobody that tells a story like that shows the building because the wall goes like this. The people were thrown out the window and slid to the ground. And yeah, they were banged and bumped up. And there was a dung pile at the bottom of the window because in those days you just throw your garbage out the window. So these guys slid down this poop-caked wall and landed in a big pile of poop. So many of them survived. Some of them might have been traumatized. I don't go there. So the same thing with samurai castles. They had a sloped motte upon which the wooden castle was built. The sloped motte was faced in stone. There are great stories about that, about Tokugawa Ieyasu and how he dealt with daimyo that he felt might be trouble to him in the future, especially the sons of his allies. The thing that impressed me the most, though, were accounts of the Nightingale Floor. The Nightingale Floor is a regular floor, but it's set so to maximize something that any of us that have walked on wooden floors have noticed: squeaking. You walk on a wooden floor, it goes, and if it's anywhere out of line, if it's anywhere unsupported, right, it squeaks. Old houses are known for the floor going as you walk. That's because the wooden floors are creaking. So the story goes that certain daimyo engaged, I guess, Archimedes scale engineers to create nightingale floors, a floor that if you walked on it would just squeak and walk and continuously. The idea being to keep thieves in the night and assassins away from you, to give you warning. Hey, the floor is creaking. It's 4 in the morning. Everybody but my wife knows they shouldn't be out there 4 in the morning. Okay, I'm gonna pick up my bow, and because my house has paper floors or paper walls, they're called shoji. I'm just gonna shoot an arrow right through there toward the sound, and that could probably scare the hell out of your kids. But also, lucky kids are short. But also, it could either interfere with or kill an agent sent from an enemy, or an agent of the daimyos, the shogun, whoever, the emperor even, sent to kill you or to steal your most valuable possession, whatever that might be. Many accounts of ninja talk about the ability for a ninja to walk so softly that no one can hear. Sometimes they say ninjas could walk across water. Ninjas could walk across sand. They could walk across, what was it, rice paper without wrinkling it. These are the stories that come to us. Some real, some fantastic, some wholly made up. But there is a persistent idea that a good fighting artist, now not a competitive fighting artist, those people are very much centered on the technique of combat, which is rich and full, and mastering it creates in you a magnificent warrior. However, there are addentive techniques, tactics, ideas, philosophical eddies that can be useful, one of which is this concept of the Nightingale Floor and its compensatory technique, the Nightingale Floor technique. In it, the story goes, the ninja, the agent, the spy, the shinobi, whoever you want to call him, right? The night soil man come to collect, whatever, would be able to so place his feet and weight as to render the Nightingale Floor's uneven, squeaky nature nugatory. And that's why you see in some of the movies a guy walking across rice paper and it doesn't even wrinkle. Good luck with that. Like I said, some fantastic, some real. Like levitation. I don't know if you folks have ever watched the, can't think what it's called, Karmic Levitation? At any rate, there's a form of levitation that is tested for, and every year they have competitions. And what you do is you bounce on your bum on a rubber floor, and you bounce down this rubber floor on your bum, in a lotus position. And the difference between your air time between bum bounces and what standard physics calculates should be your rise and fall time is considered to be your level of enlightenment. Look, it was an extra quarter of a second I was up there. I must be pretty darn close to reality, be able to float right there in the air someday. So, if you're laughing by now, or if you were moved to humor, I posted a video of these guys doing this. They do it every year. I think it's called karmic flying, but it could be something else somewhat related. Anyway, from my point of view, as a person who believes that those powers are possible, but who does not know what the mechanism for awakening or training them might be, I still find that wholly fantastic. If you can levitate, sit there on the ground and leave the ground. Hover there for a couple seconds, come back down. Don't bounce on your butt. Don't bounce on a trampoline and say, look, I can fly, Mom, just a little bit. It's not the same thing. Levitation is mental powered suspension of the body, or a body, without connection to what we consider to be traditional physics. So no bouncing on your bum for levitation. Sorry, you guys. You're wrong, and it's okay. I'm wrong about a lot of things, too. I have to accept it, and sometimes I go on. Sometimes I don't. Anyway, getting back to the Nightingale Floor. I practice, I call it Kneeless Walking, which is basically the Nightingale Floor technique. The idea is to move yourself without bouncing. And I bounce. Anyone knows me knows I bounce when I walk. But if you ever see me and my head is like almost level and I'm taking tiny little steps, they're not mincing steps, they're very sure. But that's me practicing the Nightingale Floor technique. The idea is to absolutely evenly distribute my weight, my mass, and my motion, my inertia, all in one, so that I spend the least amount of time adding energy to any part of the system that I travel across. That's a weird way to put it, but yeah. It's that energy that creates the creak. So if you don't spend as much energy, any creak you make won't be as loud. It's a thing. So if I stomp across the floor, it's going to warp, and I'm putting a lot of energy into that floor as I walk across it. If I slide across the floor, I'm covering each area more evenly, and I'm not subjecting any particular area to an unusual stress like I would if I was stomping on the area of my heel or something. This is my whole body stretched out if I'm sliding. And, of course, walking soft is something that almost everyone that's engaged in special ops wishes they could do at need. Usually you're like dressed to the gills and, BDUs and body paint and night vision goggles, and you've got a bullpup up here, and, you're like very encumbered, enough to make noise, which would seem counterintuitive to me, but these guys are experts and I'm not. But I think even those guys would love to be able to move at speed, even encumbered as they are, more or less absolutely silently. And that is the ideal of this Nightingale Floor technique. As with certain other techniques of martial and fighting arts, it's possible that there is no real version of it, and that what I do is merely practice walking smoothly and softly. And what happened today, in terms of that, because I don't do it all the time, you'll laugh, but when you see me walking and my head is smooth and I'm moving very slowly and I'm putting each foot directly in front of the other, not the little jog I do, but the definite walk I do, very slow motion walk, that's what I'm doing. And when I'm done with that, 50 feet, if I'm really going well, 100 feet, I'm exhausted. That's how much goes into doing that. And it looks easy. It kind of looks like, okay, what's the old man doing? It doesn't look harmful, so okay, weird. But really, I'm practicing a fighting arts technique, not one that is used in fighting, but one that is used in infiltration, in what I would consider to be a martial art as opposed to a fighting art. But, again, it is physically affecting people. It is my body being employed to do so, which makes it, in my estimation, a fighting art rather than a martial art. The person who decided what agents have to do and where they have to go, that's a martial artist. The individual on the spot is a fighting artist, or perhaps a fighting craftsman, if you don't invent new techniques of your own and merely copy. Well, not merely copy, and instead copy, then you are not an artist. Artists are creative. You are a craftsman. Craftsmen are repetitive and replicative. And there's nothing wrong with either one. If you do something really well, why not do it all the time and get even better at it? Hone off seconds and make it easier on yourself and make a better product incrementally. There's nothing wrong with that. Or if you're a creative artist and you decide, you know what, I'm not going to sing like those guys sing. I'm going to sing different. And somebody notices. Oh yeah. There's a difference. If you say, I am the 42nd best Elvis impersonator in the world, you're a craftsman, you're not an artist. But if you're writing your own material and performing it live for an audience and you modify that material to suit your aesthetic as you play, that your art is a living art, in other words, it modifies, it changes, it evolves, then you're an artist. And I'm an artist. And my physical art is not a fighting art. My physical art is creative dance. I have no training, and I'm a terrible dancer, but that is my physical art. I have a kinesthetic sense that says, oh, I could do this. Let's try that. Someday my body's going to need to do this. I better practice it now. Stuff like that. Silly stuff. But it also leads me to things like the Nightingale Floor technique. Today, and we're talking about 47 years after I knew about these things, had read about them for the first time, and they touched my young brain, and I thought, like, oh, is that cool? Imagine having that power to be absolutely silent. So I have been working toward, not by reading people's techniques, not by studying people's techniques, though I do watch swordsmen move. If you want to learn a lot of things about the body, watch swordsmen move. Google fencing match and watch the people fence. It's all very highly constrained. Very seldom does anyone get hurt. It is indeed a sport rather than a fighting art as it is demonstrated in Olympic combat and that sort of thing. However, the skills that you learn for it are absolutely applicable to the fighting art of the sword. But watching swordsmen move, I watch efficiency in motion. Efficiency. A couple years ago, I saw, and I don't know who she was, I never saw her again, but in Olympic competition, I don't know which of the three big blades she was using. I don't know, what is it, foil, apiece, or saber, I don't know which one. I don't know enough about it unless I'm watching an expert for a while to gain any sense of that. I'm not a swordsman. I use the sword as an exercise tool, so I use a big one. But watching this girl, redhead girl, so naturally I was looking. Red-haired boy watching a red-haired girl, and she's fast and good looking. Doggone, she was like lightning. Lightning. And if you were a big, strong man, and that little slip of a girl, 5'2", 5'4", took it in her mind to put the kisaki, the cutting part, the stabby part of the sword, in your solar plexus, she could, before you set yourself to stop her. Wow. And I had a friend for many years who used to always say, a good big one will always beat a good little one. No, they won't. A good big one will never be as fast as a good little one, and fast is what wins fights. I'm going to ask you fighting artists out there, do I have a clue here? Certainly if you're a fencer and you are faster and just as sure as the other guy, you have the advantage, even if you're much smaller. If you have a two-handed sword in your hands that's built for your body size and you're well adapted to wielding, you're in better shape to strike first than is that big man with an even bigger sword or even a smaller sword. You might be the faster, and if you're the faster, you are quite possibly the winner before the battle even begins. Personal opinion from a non-fighting artist. You may make of it what you will, but these are my sureties at this time, in this stage of my learning about kinesthesiology through creative dance, through the study of karate officially for some time, and then the love of watching boxing, karate, wrestling, all kinds of different wushu or kung fu we call it in the West, but really in China, if I understand it correctly, kung fu just means your skill. When somebody says your kung fu is very good, they may be talking about your flipping burgers. They may be talking about your bonsai tree technique. They may be talking about your way of learning, your way of walking, your way of fashion modeling. It's all kung fu. So I say wushu, which specifies military. Wu, if I understand, I don't speak Chinese. Ask Sam Gonzalez, he speaks fluent Chinese. But Wu means military. So wushu is military art or technique. Wudang is the Wudang Mountain is associated with, of course, fighting technique. In the fantasies, it's called wushu as opposed to Shaolin monastery technique. Really, all the lineages are broken. Somewhere along the line, somebody liked what he heard or liked what he saw and created an art out of what he knew and called it that. Because all the original arts are broken. There is no 500-year lineage to the originator of whatever art you think of, including wrestling. Modern wrestling isn't anything like Greco-Roman wrestling from the Olympics. Nothing like it, nothing like it, nothing like it. There are reasons for that, but not all of them are about societal mores. Some of them are about learning how to move more efficiently. That doesn't require an art. But if an artist applies himself or herself with his creative talent, with her creative talent, to the process of learning to move more efficiently, absolutely they will benefit from it. Wow. At the very least, you'll bang your elbows and knees a lot less. True story. So today, in my walk, this is going on a while, I'm sorry, but so today in my walk, on 10th Street and not quite 10th Street, before 10th Street, maybe 7th and 8th Street, and Penn, I achieved my goals in Nightingale Floor technique. I was walking and I thought like, I'm walking slowly. This is how clueless I can be about what's going on. I thought, I'm walking slowly, and I looked down and I was making no sound at all. I went, cool, then I was making sound. So then I applied myself to the technique for a little while. No, oh, I'm in. Don't think, don't move, don't think. I'm out again. Some folks would call that feeling in the zone, which I understand. For a moment, you are better connected with your physical skill or your whatever your discipline is than you are most days. And so I had that today. And then I thought about it. I thought about it all the way up past 10th Street, all the way up past 13th Street. And was on Middle again and walking up Middle. And between 13th and 15th, there's both 14th and Mulberry Street. To think that I saw it on Mulberry Street. Look it up. It's a book. I thought, I wonder if I can just do that. Because I seem to fall into it sometimes in a certain state, and I can't tell you what that state is because I don't remember how I got into it, but here I am. And I call that artistic insight, by the way, instead of enlightenment. If it had happened to me and it was enlightenment, then I would remember and be able to apply it in all things all the time. But it only occurs occasionally. That's artistic insight. It may change. One day it may become enlightenment, and suddenly you can't hear me move. And I'm doing it because I think it's right. It interferes with other people's lives less. So I tried again between 13th and 15th. And doggone, there I was again. Little while, little while, little while. And that brings me to who I saw today on my walk. Because I saw Pina's brother, and I can't think of his name offhand. But we were talking about Pina on Sharpsburg Connections the other day. Pina, our community seamstress for many years, a really talented tailor. If you wanted alterations or a piece made from whole cloth, so to speak, Pina was your person. And I saw her brother lives on Middle Street. I says, hey, how you doing? He goes, okay, how about you? I says, all right. So that was kind of how that worked. In the process of my doing my usual thing, for a moment, I was in tune with my desire to evolve a Nightingale Floor technique where I could move as utterly silently as Wild Bill's capable. Oh, excuse me, Pepsi. And I managed to achieve it 3 times today. Once by accident, once by trying to remember how I got to that accident, and once by waiting a while and thinking like, can I do that again? Now I know that tomorrow it may not be like that. Tomorrow my hip might be out. Tomorrow my back might be out. Tomorrow some part of me might be, I have slight scoliosis from sitting at the computer for 30 years. So something might be out of shape or out of line. However, it might be that tomorrow I can go, all right, let's see how this works and snap right into it. If that happens, it's enlightenment. It's not big enlightenment like understanding life, the universe, and everything, but it's a form of enlightenment. So far, it's only artistic insight. And as an artist, well, I do get some of that. That was my walk. Of course, later on, I dropped stuff off. I walked up to the dollar store, and I saw Casey, who is an important member of our community, for those of you who don't know, and Jamie, who's also an important member of our community, for those who don't know. And that was all pretty cool. I think that was it. If I missed somebody, I'm sorry. It was a very interesting walk today.